Hello, my name is Danny, and this is Amy, and we're Homestead DNA. So we wanted to do a video about our garden plans for 2023, but first we wanted to do kind of a reintroduction for those who have just don't know who we are, and or have forgotten who we are because we didn't post a video all winter. So we're just two middle-aged people that decided that we wanted to get closer to nature, and we bought a property of about 60 acres, and we just started building a garden, basically. Just to be a little bit more self-sufficient and just kind of learn how to work with our hands and, do everything for ourselves.
Yeah.
So
our hobbies the past several years has been gardening, but we were gardening on a tiny plot, basically in all shade, in these little raised beds that we just kind of put together so we had a place to do something. So now that we've got this land, it has given us a chance to really expand that and grow and kind of test our limits and see what grows well and what doesn't and what we can do and what we can put up. And I think we've mostly been successful here.
Yeah,
so
we got a pretty decent backdrop of stuff that we've
continue that. But this land that we bought, it's land and then a fixer-upper house on it. So there's no structures. There's nothing set in place to make this easy for us. So the past 2 garden seasons, we've just been slowly working to build that up. And last year we got laying chickens. And so this year we're working to expand that a little bit. So what plans do we have? Big plans, right?
Yeah. So again, this all started as a hayfield. We have about an acre hayfield that we use for our garden area. It's funny because the land is 60 acres, but basically we're trying to cram everything into this 1 acre for some reason. I don't really know why. It's just a perfect spot, honestly. And then also proximity to everything. You want things to be close together so you're not having to do a lot of walking and moving. Keep all your resources the same. So we built a shed last year just to store some basic stuff in it. And we had built 4 42 by 50 foot plots for our garden the year before. So we've got a pretty large garden area. But because we like to do things differently, we're expanding that this year. So we are going to do a bunch of raised beds. We're not sure how many we're going to actually get done this year, but I'm going to make a video about that here soon, about how we're making our raised beds. But we got a pretty large area that we're going to put those in. So we'll probably start off with like 6 or 7 and then figure out the rest.
4 by 8 foot raised beds. Yeah. So something that's easier on our backs and gets us out of the weeds of the hayfield. So
and it's something, so we have in-ground garden for our annual stuff. This is more for perennial stuff as well, like strawberries and things that are going to stay there for a while. If we do asparagus, whatever we want to do, something where we don't feel like we have to kind of rip things up every year to redo them. They can actually become perennial beds, and we'll have plenty of space for those. Which will be really nice. The other thing, we did chickens last year, and so our kind of not so hard rule, because it's not really going to happen, is that 1 new animal a year at most. So technically speaking, meat chickens are not a new animal.
No, they are variety.
It's a new variety of the same kind of chicken, same kind of animal as we got last year. We got egg layers last year, so this year we're going to do some meat birds. Which, we have never had chickens before. And so egg layers was a new thing. Meat birds is also going to be a new thing for us. We did do a kind of a community slaughter. Community processing of meat birds with some neighbors. So we've got some experience. We know we can do it. So we're going to go ahead and bite the bullet and get some meat birds this year, and probably do 2 different sessions, at least is the plan.
Yeah, we're kind of thinking do a smaller batch late spring, and then another batch in the fall that's a little bit bigger. So get our feet wet first.
Yeah.
But we're ready to go. We got our chicken plucker a couple days ago, so we're set. We just have to figure everything else out first. So, but I think we've got about 2 months before that starts up.
Yeah.
All right. What about the other animal?
The other animal, which is really more Amy wants this animal. I'm totally fine with it, but this is kind of the thing she wanted really ever since the beginning. You talked about this, but it's rabbits. So we're going to build a small rabbit hutch and start off real small with just a few rabbits, nothing too major. But there's a couple of reasons why, and most of the reason why is because we like their manure as fertilizer for the garden. Everything seems to go back to the garden in the end. All of these animals have to have dual purpose, or multiple purposes, dual at least. So the fertilizer, the excrement of the manure. I don't know what's a better word. The manure of the rabbits is great for the garden because it's not hot, and you can basically put it straight on the garden. So that's something that we want to do because fertilizer costs are sky high. They always have been, or have been for a while, and they're not going to come down anytime soon. So we need sources of fertilization that are good for our garden. Now we still have to source feed and stuff for the rabbits, so there is a cost there. But we get the meat off the rabbits, or we can sell the rabbits, whatever we decide to do. I don't think we've necessarily decided how we're going to do that yet.
Haven't gotten that far yet.
But we're going to get a few of them, try to breed them, see what happens.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and then use their manure as fertilizer for our garden.
Yep. So we've decided on our cages, and we've got a rough outline of our hutch that we're building. It's going to hold about 8 cages. And so we'll get that done in the next couple weeks, month-ish, and 2 months.
We'll see. We got a lot of
there's a lot of spring projects. So. Yeah. So for the spring, it's meat chickens, rabbits, and raised beds is what we're really focusing on. And then I've already started some garden stuff inside, some seed starting, which I'm going to bring you along for as well. But we're going to talk a little bit about our garden plans, and we'll try to throw up some images for you of what our garden looks like, and then also where we're putting things. But we just got our little notes here. And we're going to start in the top left corner and work our way down for you. Just to give you an idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it. We, like he said before, we've got 4 40-ish by 50-ish foot beds. They're all in ground, and they're all, I think this will be our 3rd year now, growing basically on an old hayfield. So we've spent lots of time pulling up rocks, broad forking, doing tilling, how dare we, but has to be done. Also adding compost and pulling weeds. That's been our life.
Tons of pulling weeds.
We use the woven weave fabric, and each year we use more and more of it, honestly, because it saves us. If we didn't have woven weave fabric, we wouldn't be able to get anything because the weeds are just so incredibly aggressive. But the good news is the ground underneath the woven weave fabric has improved so much. Yeah. So we are definitely seeing improvements in our garden, and we're going to continue to do that. We just have to recognize that it's going to take time before it's a perfect garden.
Yeah, so the main issue is it's a hayfield, so it's been that way for probably 60 plus years, if not longer than that, 60 that I know of. And so its seed bank is just nothing but grass and weed seeds. And so it has a really heavy seed bank, and so it wants to go back to a hayfield. So it will, and it'll do it. And it's really hard to, with your hands, stop a hayfield from growing over a half an acre almost. Yeah. So we have to cover it, and we cover it, and hopefully the things will germinate and die underneath it. And we try not to disturb the soil, but we have to disturb the soil because the soil in the beginning was this much topsoil, and then it was just clay. and so you have to disturb the soil to get to kind of decompact all that clay, get some organic matter in there so that other living organisms and bacteria can actually work to make soil. So that's why we had to do tilling,
Yeah.
but we're in year 3, so we hope not to have to do too much tilling at this
Yeah.
point. We still will probably have to do some, but I can take my hand and dig up the soil now, whereas before that could have just never happened. So it's not very deep, but it will continue to get deeper the more we pile things up on top. So at this point, not a ton of tilling needs to be done. We just cover it up, let everything die down, and then plant into it.
Yep.
So
yeah, so we're comfortable with this, and this is what works for us. Everyone gardens differently. So you see a perfect garden out there, you don't see the hours of weeding behind it on
Right.
video and everything else that it took to get to that point. At the scale that we're growing, we need something that makes it easy enough for us to get out there. So let's talk about our crops and what we're putting in. And a note on this too, we like to grow a year's worth of something if we can help it. There's some things you can't grow a year's worth of watermelon because it's not going to last that long. Right. You can grow 1,000 pounds of watermelon like we did last year, but yeah, there's some things that you just can't preserve for the whole year. But anywhere that we can, I guess.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it.
Can.
So we'll start with the first crop is in the far left corner of our plot, which is corn.
We're going to try corn again. We've had some pretty impressive failures in corn.
Impressive.
I don't know why.
Weeds.
But weeds have been a part of it. Crows have been a part of it. Probably the overall size of the garden and again, going back to weeds, not even in the corn plot, but weeds elsewhere, taking up our time, and then saying, all right, well, we'll just have to let that go. We've also had some issues with it where it's not growing very consistently, so I'm just trying to figure out why that's happening. I don't know if it's inconsistent plant depth or what, but I've had spotty germination here and there, which usually you don't have with corn. But
and I've been doing research on that, and I think I may have some solutions, so we'll try some new things this year. We'll see if it helps. Good thing. So, but we're doing it's half a plot's worth, so probably 6 or 7 rows worth of corn, 40 foot long. But what we're doing, instead of doing all 40 feet times the 7 rows at one time, is we're going to split it in half. So we'll do a 20-foot length of the rows in one succession, and then say a month or so later do our next succession. So we're going to break it up into 2 blocks. Corn grows best in blocks so that it self-pollinates better. So that's our plan with the corn.
Yeah, so basically it's about a 20 by 25 foot block per one. And we will space the rows a little closer in the corn plot, so we'll probably get about 8 rows of corn in that. And then in our second planting, we'll have another 8 rows. And they'll just be picked at different times because, again, we would rather have multiple pickings than just one.
That'd be too much to do at once.
and
then we can eat it longer, eat it fresh longer.
I think maybe we'll do another video about our varieties.
Yeah.
Just more specific varieties. This is just kind of overarching.
Yeah. And so the second half of that plot, we are going to devote to watermelon. And we're actually going to do something different this year than what we did last year. We learned our lesson. Last year we got excited. We got the whole plot ready and put all our seeds in, and they were growing and it was beautiful. And then all the watermelons started to ripen. He had like a literal truckload.
Multiple truckloads.
I know, but it was too much. We were both eating a watermelon a day. Yeah. The chickens were getting a watermelon a day. We were giving watermelons. Everybody, right? So we're gonna do 1 row of watermelon, and then wait 3 months or 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and then do another row of watermelon. Right. So hopefully that breaks up the harvest a little bit. So.
Yeah, it's really easy to just plant too much because you're already out there. So and it's not a bad idea because you don't know sometimes what you're going to get. Yep. So over planting is not necessarily a horrible thing. I mean, having too many watermelons is not a problem, really. But if you you do it for a year, plant as much as you can, because half of them may die, you don't know, and then you're going to be happy that you did. But since we had such luck last year, we kind of knew what we were doing. We got a little more consistent with what we were doing with our watermelons and had a good production year. We're going to cut back on that and hope that we have the same luck this year, which is always a big hope. And then, we'll have, and then we'll have more over a longer period of time, but with shorter intervals, and so that we can manage it, give away, not really be, again, just having a harvest time where you're also letting half of them rot because you can't even get to them.
Yeah.
So
there's
so many.
So that's one plot, and then the next far plot, we're splitting in half again. Half of it will go to potatoes. We'll do 6 40-foot rows of potatoes. We're just going to plant all that out at the same time. We're going to do russet and probably red potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sticking to 2 varieties this year. Last year we did 5, I think.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
And it got a little confusing in the end.
Yeah.
So.
But we saw that, what we liked at
what
that
we
point in
used.
time, what we used, what we could can up, what stored best and worked best for us. So we're just going to kind of stick. So third year it's not about trying new varieties. We kind of started doing this last year, but this year it's definitely not about, to us, just trying fancy varieties of anything. It's about getting back to 1 or 2 varieties and growing as much as we can.
And we've got enough complicated things in other places. We're intentionally planning on trying to keep us simple. So last year, 6 rows of potatoes gave us over 600 pounds of potatoes, which equals well over a year's supply for us. So that checks the box for a year's supply. Yep. We're also going to put in a row of sweet potatoes. I'm excited for that. You're not as big of a sweet potato person as I am.
I mean, I like sweet potatoes. They're fun.
Yeah, so, okay. But we'll do that and see how that goes. We meant to do it last year and time just got away from us. So I'm excited to have those. And then the second half of that plot, we are going to have space for watermelon and also space for pumpkins and winter squash. So that's the plan there.
Yeah. Not as many winter squash.
No, we don't need as many. We still have a whole bunch. Yeah. So that'll satisfy that need.
Which, based off of squash bug pressure, we'll see how any of that works out. But,
right. And go from there.
That's another video.
Yeah. So those are our 2 far plots. And then dividing that between our 2 close plots, we've got our long arch trellis walkways. If you're interested in seeing what that looks like, we'll link down below in the descriptions.
Or put some up there.
Oh, we're up there, down there. The video of us putting that up. So it's 2 cattle panel trellis tunnels, basically. It's 7 each, so it's about almost 30 feet on each side. So on one of them, we are going to do tomatoes, which I'm pretty excited about. We're more than doubling our tomato production from last year. And this is actually where I had a question for you guys. We're looking for good slicer tomatoes. We've grown lots of paste tomatoes, and I've been struggling finding a good slicer tomato. We both really like pasta sauce and salsa, but we're not so big on the fresh tomatoes, but we know lots of people that are. So if you've got some recommendations for us, I'd appreciate that. We keep trying, and I keep being disappointed by what I find. So if you have any good varieties, I'd appreciate the feedback.
You should try that Haas Tools one.
So
Haasinator or something.
Yeah, they've got a couple. I'll have to look and see. Yeah. But I'm excited for this.
I am sponsored by Haas Tools today.
He's not sponsored.
I didn't really plan that out, but yeah.
He's just a fan.
Yeah, I'm just a fan.
But it's important for these tomatoes to be indeterminate type because they need to keep growing over the trellis. That's the whole point, right? But I think that'll be really cool looking, and I hope it works. I've seen a handful of videos where people do it over like 1 4-foot arch trellis, but I've never seen a big tunnel of it, so I hope that works out for me.
I haven't either.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. Yeah. On the second trellis, we're going to divide that between cucumbers and then loofah in the back.
More loofah.
More loofah. if you watch my last video about loofah, you'll know why I'm doing that. So there you go. And then
we might also throw some beans in there, some pole beans in with
there may be room for beans.
We're also going to do a couple more rows of tomatoes. Again, we're going to try to grow a lot of tomatoes this year. But also okra. So last year I reused okra seeds that I had from the year before that was a year where I had a bunch of different varieties and they all cross-pollinated. And so then I got just random okra. Okra. I gotta say it right. I can't let my Alabama go. Mm-mm. But I got random okra last year, and so this year I'm going to go back to basics again. Again, that's the thing for this year is back to basics, and I'm just going to do a whole row of Clemson spineless because I like Clemson spineless. It doesn't get prickly, and I'm a big fan of that. It's nice. It's just a
we both like that variety the best. We've tried a handful over the years and always come back to that. So
I'm sure there's some good ones out there, and we'll probably try some different ones in the future, but this year we're just going to stick with that. And then also at least one row of peppers, maybe two. It just depends on what we grow. I would like to try to do some more bell peppers this year than we had last year, because you have to plant a lot of bell peppers to get enough bell peppers. You can plant one serrano plant and you got all the serranos you need. Cayenne the same way, but bell peppers you really have to plant a lot of them. So and they're good in everything, so I will probably plant a few more bell peppers.
Yep, I agree with that.
And then I may do one or two specialty hot peppers this year. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do though.
Yeah, I plan to, along with that, I plan to do mostly all bell peppers and then enough hot peppers to make your salsa hot.
Yeah.
That you want.
Which will be fun.
Yeah.
Because I might do one or two. Because I love growing peppers. We didn't do it last year, like really super hots. And so I might try one or two super hots just to see what we can get.
Yeah, have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So over on the other side, the plot next to it, we're going to use that for broccoli. And I don't need a whole 40-foot row of broccoli, so I'm going to do broccoli, probably 2/3 of that, and then 1/3 for celery. And then I'm also going to have a space for lettuce and then transition that into squash. And then I've got some rows there for beans. We like our bush beans, like our green beans, but we also really enjoyed growing black-eyed beans last year. And I've collected a couple other dried beans to grow. So we're gonna continue on with that. So now, if you look at the rest of the garden plot, it says flowers, and that's on purpose. We kind of thought over the winter, what can we do beyond just growing for ourselves? What can we do to share with the community and also maybe even create a business from this? And
try to recoup a little bit of money out of everything we put in.
We'll never be millionaires, but if I can at least pay for my compost, I will be happy, right?
Me too.
Yeah. So we've got the front 8 rows of these, our two front beds devoted to flowers. Half will probably be like cool season, hardy annual flowers, things you plant in early spring. And then the other half will be like your summer flowers. Think zinnias, sunflowers, dahlias, things like that. So I'm going to make a separate video all about what my plans are and what kind of flowers I'm planning on, as well as what I've already started. So I'll bring you along for that. It'll be an adventure, and we'll try something new. But we had room for it, and no matter what, we'll have lots of pretty flowers for the house.
That's right. Yeah.
I know you're excited for that.
Yeah, we're just trying to mix it up a little bit and do something different. And like I said, it is a decent market to get into. Flowers it's not a ton of overhead.
Yeah.
And they actually sell for a good price. Unlike some vegetables, we would not be able to make a bunch of money off of growing bell peppers and selling them. So
around here,
not enough to even matter. So but maybe flowers, and we're testing it out to
Yeah.
see if there is a good market for it. We live in a pretty good area here in Central Virginia. We actually can go to, some pretty large cities that are only about an hour away, so we can kind of move around where we need to. Just find a market for it if we can't find one here.
Yeah.
But,
so it'll be an interesting year for that. Last year I did a smaller test cut flower garden, and that worked out well. For most of the summer we had multiple vases throughout the house. Oh, yeah. Like 10 vases of flowers throughout the house. And there were several times where I was able to give bouquets of flowers to friends and family. And so even if that's all that comes from it, it'll still make us happy. But I think it'll be successful, and we'll go from there. But yeah, lots of plans for this year. The neat thing about planning is plans always change. So we'll see what happens as we get closer into the season and the work really starts happening. But I think that this is a good starting place for us, and kind of helps us get organized and start taking the right steps so that we'll be ready come garden season.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have a general idea, but don't get too stuck on that idea.
Well, I hope you guys enjoy this. If so, please hit that like button. It lets YouTube and us know that you like these kind of videos, so we really appreciate that. And we will see you on the next video. Sound good?
Well, sounds good to me.
Have a good one.
I'll take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.